Hello and welcome to another video. Today I will be doing a tier list of all of the tracks from Cuddy's debut mixtape, A Kid Named Cuddy, ranking them from S tier through to D tier. These rankings will be within the context of the mixtape, and there is no F tier simply because I don't find any of the tracks off of this project to be unlistenable. I recently uploaded my review for A Kid Named Cuddy, so if you'd like to check that out and hear my more in-depth thoughts on the project, the link will be in the description for you. So let's kick things off with 50 Ways to Make a Record. This was the only track that didn't make it onto the 2022 remaster, as Cuddy had troubles getting the sample cleared. I'm a pretty big fan of this track. I really like the drum-based production, and I think it ties really well into the narrative of the mixtape. Cuddy's singing is really good here, and I really like the different sound it provides to the project. So for that reason, I'm going to put 50 Ways to Make a Record in B tier. Next up is Down and Out. The opening track of the project kicks things off really well. The OutKast sample is sick, giving us a more rock-inspired kind of production. I like Cuddy's energy in the verses, and the hook is really solid too. So I'm going to put Down and Out in B tier as well. I'm actually going to go above 50 Ways to Make a Record. I think Down and Out is maybe slightly better, but those two tracks are pretty even for me. Next up, Is There Any Love, featuring Wale. This track definitely focuses more on rapping than some of the other tracks on this list. Wale's feature is kind of forgettable, and Cuddy's verses don't really do much for me either. I don't mind the hook, but even then, compared to some of the other tracks on the project, it's definitely one of the weaker ones, so for that reason, I'm actually going to put it in D tier. Next up is Cuddy Get. Now, Cuddy Get has one of the worst samples of Cuddy's entire career. I have no idea why he and Plain Pat thought this was a good idea. It's this annoying British kid like yelling in the background, and it completely ruins the track for me. I think if you took that sample out, the song is okay, but because of that sample, it drags it down so much. A few of Cuddy's lyrics here are pretty terrible as well, like I'm it like the clown is a pretty terrible bar. So I'm gonna go low D tier for Cuddy Get. Next up is Man on the Moon, one of my personal favorite Cuddy tracks of all time. This is probably the most important track on the mixtape. I think it does a really good job at establishing who Cuddy is and what sets him apart from different rappers. It's an anthem about embracing your own individual identity and how it's okay to be different and do things differently. And for that reason, like a ton of fans really connect with this song. So for me, Man on the Moon is a S tier track. It's definitely one of my favorite tracks from Cuddy of all time. Next up we have The Prayer, another fan favorite track. The Prayer has one of the best samples Cuddy has ever used, The Funeral from Band of Horses. He takes an already great song and makes it even better, giving this really relatable and emotional flavor to it. On paper, it's a pretty simple track, but what Cuddy manages to deliver in such a short runtime is really impressive. There's something really special about this track. Tons of fans just really connect with it. Incredible hook, the verses are really solid, but it's the production that really shines, and they all come together, creating one of my favorite Cuddy tracks of all time. So The Prayer for me is another S tier track. Next is one of Cuddy's most popular songs, In Day and Night. This was Cuddy's first big hit and the track that really put him on the global stage. While I think this song is a tad overplayed, there's no denying just how incredible it is. The way Cuddy kind of delivers these serious topics and lyrics in an upbeat kind of sound is really impressive. This is definitely one of the best beats of Cuddy's entire career, and the track just has such a tight energy and flow where not a single second is wasted. The verses are fantastic, the hook is killer, and it's one of the catchiest songs Cuddy has ever made. There's no denying that Day and Night is an S tier track, but now we just have to figure out whereabouts it sits. I think I'm going to go after Man on the Moon. While Day and Night is definitely a more beloved track than The Prayer and Man on the Moon, within the context of this mixtape, those other two tracks are probably more important to the narrative, but still an S tier song. Next up is Embrace the Martian. This track has a ton of energy to it, and I really like the hook. Cuddy's rapping is a bit hit or miss on this project, but I think this is one of the better examples. His flow is really solid, and I like the message he delivers about embracing his unique identity. Definitely one of the more enjoyable tracks to listen to, and for that reason, I'm gonna go high B tier. Next up is the fun, playful track Maui Wowie. This is a track that you either love or hate. Some people might find the tone to be a little bit obnoxious and out of place. I personally like it because it does break up some of the more serious tracks. Cuddy's kind of known for being emotional and dark, but this project in particular has a wide range of different tones, and this is probably the most playful track he's ever made. I'm a big fan of the production. I really like the upbeat synths and the I'm So High sample. It's a fun track that's easy to listen to and has a really catchy chorus. For that reason, I'm gonna go low B tier for Maui Wowie. Next up is Whenever. Whenever has some absolutely terrible lyrics. It's seriously one of the worst written tracks of the entire project. I do like the strings and the production, but the rest of the beat is rather simplistic. What really carries this one is the hook for me. Cuddy's singing and oohing is really nice to listen to, and thankfully the song isn't very long. That being said, it's still a D tier track for me. Next is Pillow Talk. In the same kind of tone as Whenever, Pillow Talk is another love track, and like Whenever, it also has some absolutely terrible lyrics. However, unlike Whenever, the production on this is actually really great. This track is one of Cuddy's most chill tracks ever, creating this super laid back and easygoing vibe that makes it quite easy to listen to. If you can get past the really cheesy lyrics and just soak up the cool production, it's actually not too bad. So I'm going to put Pillow Talk in C tier. Next up is Save My Soul. The track is super short, featuring one long verse by Cuddy before transitioning into this sick Gnarls Barkley sample. Cuddy's rapping is decent, it's definitely a lot better than some of the other tracks on this project, but it's also nothing special. But overall, I think this is a rather forgettable track that doesn't really bring too much to the table. I'm gonna go high D tier. I think it's definitely better than the other tracks in D tier so far, but it's definitely a skippable track within the mixtape. Next up is TGIF, or Thank God I'm Fresh. Featuring Chip the Ripper, this is another rap-focused track on the project, and personally I'm not the biggest fan. Chip's feature is kind of weak in my opinion. I don't really think he brings too much to the table here. I'm not a big fan of Cuddy's verse either. However, the one redeeming factor of this track is the hook. I really like the production and the singing that Cuddy does here. It's just a shame that the verses don't match that quality. I'm going to put Thank God I'm Fresh in D tier, just below Whenever and above Is There Any Love. Next up is Cuddy Spasm, another rap-focused track that I'm not a big fan of. Cuddy's rapping and flow here just isn't very good. Lyrically, this track underwhelms, although I do like some of the elements of the production, and for me, the hook is the best part of the track. Cuddy's singing is nice, but it's not quite enough to save this track for me. This is also one of the few tracks that has a pacing problem. Most of the tracks on this mixtape are quite tight and concise, but this one just drags on for way too long, and I'm not a big fan of that long-winded intro, where he asks literally everyone he's ever met, "What's up?" So for that reason, I'm gonna go low D tier. I think the hook just elevates this track ahead of Is There Any Love and Cuddy Get. Next up is Cleveland Is the Reason. This is a love letter to his hometown Cleveland, and it's a pretty decent track. The production on this is sick. I really love it. It's really unique and atmospheric and matches Cuddy's voice perfectly. Cuddy's vocal layering here is really impressive, where he kind of tags back and forth within the chorus. What holds this track back a bit is some of the lyrics, but the really sick structure and sound elevate this track and is one of my favorites off the mixtape. I'm going to go high B tier, just below Embrace the Martian for me. And the final track is Heaven at Night. So I won't be ranking the intro because it isn't a track, so Heaven at Night is our last track here, and it's definitely one of my favorites. I love the whispering that kicks things off before transitioning into a more low octave monotone verse that actually really works. The juxtaposition between Cuddy's more deadpan verses and the higher pitched hook is really great. Lyrically, this track is really solid, and I'm a huge fan of the hook. So for that reason, I'm going to put Heaven at Night in A tier. So quickly, let's review. I didn't mean to put Maui Wowie in B tier. It's more of a C tier track. I like the order of S tier. I think B tier is in the correct order as well. C tier is fine, and I think I'm pretty happy with D tier. So that is my tier list for A Kid Named Cuddy. Do you agree or disagree with any of my picks? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to check out my review, it will be in the description for you. Thank you so much for watching. This has been For The Record.